Yeah, well then, another album down. Some Heart Mother, bit of a quirky one. There's a lot going on there. Uh, Callum, give your sort of overall thoughts on the album.
I feel this one, I think, had a very, for me especially, I think instrumentally, I think it's quite impressive. I think that a lot, especially in a lot of these songs, there's that one instrument that's very prominent and very commanding and or allows the song to have a really distinct feel to it. I think especially like something like If, you know? I feel like instrumentally this whole album I think was quite impressive just from like a lot of solo stuff or stuff that's very complementary of each other. I was very impressed by it in that sense. I think there's a lot of variety of like different feelings they were going for with this one, especially coming off the soundtrack they did for the film that they did. Uh, yeah, I'm quite impressed by this one. Yeah, for in a lot of different ways to a lot of the other albums. Yeah, I quite liked it. Wouldn't say it was my favorite, but I think there's definitely stuff to be impressed about with these tracks.
They definitely went for something very different with this one.
Yes,
A lot
yes,
more stripped back. Definitely, they definitely pulled back on a lot of the psychedelic things that they usually have. And even though obviously in Adam Hartmother Suite you do have a psychedelic breakdown, and an psychedelic breakfast itself is insane, like you said, in terms of its narrative. The actual sound doesn't have a lot of the very strange, ethereal, spiritual, weird, otherworldly sound that you get in their other albums. And that's what they were going for. They wanted to prove that they could make
yes.
music without relying on that one thing that Sid Barrett introduced at the start. They wanted to show they have range. And I think they absolutely pulled that off here in a lot of
I'd
ways.
say so. I'd say so.
Yeah. 10, what are your overall thoughts on the album?
Well, it's very experimental for it, especially with like
Hmm.
those are definitely the most experimental in this one, and even everything in between has like a very sort of I wouldn't guess saying experiment, I guess like a fresh sort of feel because like it sort of brings it back to like much more classic Pink Floyd stuff while also retaining some of the more newer and varied styles I've done over the past few other albums. So it definitely has that sort of vibe that it's a little bit of the old sort of style, and a little bit of a new sort of style for them, which I'd say is pretty good. And overall, the album is actually just like I guess like really sort of fun to listen to. Is like you get all these different slices of styles and varied tones and such, which I like.
Yeah. Somehow, though, there's something about it that all feels consistent. I can't place exactly what it is, but there is something about all of these songs that link them together. Um, and I think
It's
it,
the
It's for
I
Cal.
think it's the very ordinary things it tackles.
yeah,
That too.
and it's less influenced by psychedelia and more by progressive rock. Definitely,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd say
very.
so.
Fun fact: the inspiration for the name of the album comes from when Roger Waters saw in a newspaper about a pregnant woman and an atomic powered pacemaker. That's why it's called Atom Heart Mother,
Hmm.
Mm.
funnily enough. Uh, yeah. Jeb, your overall thoughts on the album?
Stinky. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Um, this is what I consider the start of Pink Floyd really going into their golden era. If you had to like pick a time frame, And it's also where they've solidified themselves as a band without Sid Barrett. Was there's a sense of tragedy in that. There's a sense of relief that they didn't lose themselves in losing Sid Barrett. Um, Gilmour really flourishes, as he always does, but all the members perform excellently here. The only one that doesn't get a highlight in the sense, like for example, Wright did with the groupies, it's Mason. He's kind of underrepresented here, but he does what he needs to, and that's enough to help really carry the tempos for the album.
He does
It's
do a lot
overall,
of work on the album though, especially with the effects in the first and last song. Even if he
yes.
didn't, even if he's not credited as a writer or a creative force in terms of what he did to engineer the album, he did a lot for it.
It feels like this is where you kind of got Pink Floyd in their comfort zone. Like they're comfortable now, and they're just gonna keep improving till the eventual album, which I have in top three albums of all time. So
Mm-hmm.
in like all of music,
Yeah,
and
what
you see very clearly the first signs of that with the progressive rock being more influenced, the more melodic guitars and the more peaceful melody as a whole, even though sometimes the lyrics juxtaposes. This is where you really see it come into full swing.
mm,
So yeah, excellent. Very happy.
I think in terms of what they were going for to show that they can succeed in the ordinary, they did it really well. And in their search for the ordinary, they managed to go full Pink Floyd as to how they explore what the ordinary is. Search for it in a way that's like very authentic to what you'd expect Pink Floyd to do, but it still like showcases the point that they want to make about like being simpler, like stripped down, I guess, in a sense. I also think in terms of like Adam Hart Mother and Ellen Psychedelic Breakfast, there was a like experimentation of it. It does feel like the heart of like what their sense of humor is, but also how like they're managed to be able to like do these like really great storytelling pieces that are so vastly different. One that feels like an epic that is very interpretive, and the other one is just as simple as someone having breakfast. And they both do it really well. I think it's just the balance that only Pink Floyd can strike, and they achieved it quite wonderfully. I really loved it. I think "If" is probably my favorite song. Maybe "Summer '68." Either of those, they're really great. So yeah, I really loved it.
yeah, it absolutely is. This is the album where they really decided we need to prove we can do great Pink Floyd music without being influenced by Sid Barrett's style. This is the one, and by doing that, it allowed them to come out with confidence. And when you get to the next album, they resurrect the psychedelic sounds and combine it with what they've established here, and that's when they find their signature flavor that they go, yes, that's Pink Floyd. And so in this album here, Adam Hartmother, they strip away the psychedelia, they put progressive to the forefront, they still maintain their character and their quirkiness and their whimsicality, but it doesn't rely as much on the trippiness that you expect. It's more so the psychedelia comes from the actual storytelling that they do. And like you said, Jeb, a lot of the subject matter of the lyrics, especially in side two, is very simple. It's very ordinary and relatable. And you have things like, brain damage and groupies and, lying in a field or eating your breakfast. These are all things that are very ordinary. And they are able to make things that are so ordinary so interesting because of how they tell a story, how they form the music, the sound, everything to do with it. It's so unique, and I think this was a ballsy album to do, not only because they open it with a 23-minute song, which is unbelievable, but also they they decided to sacrifice their biggest, most popular strength, which is their psychedelia in their early years, and replace it with something that they didn't like out of their comfort zone, being the orchestra. They put themselves in a really, really, really uncomfortable position, and they thrived and succeeded. And I think for that, that makes Adam Hart Mother a really big achievement for them as a band. It's also very consistent. I think all five of these songs are very special in their own way and all provide something really, really good for me, in terms of lyrics, in terms of sound, in terms of performances, in terms of character from Roger, Richard, and David on those three songs that they all did themselves. And then with Adam Hart Mother and Ellen Psychedelic Breakfast, you see what the band can do with these very, very ambitious concepts. And I think in a lot of ways, I think this album goes underrated because of how different it is. But I think it does deserve credit for its statement, its ambition, and also for how stripped back it is, and yet they can still create really, really compelling rock music without their most popular signature flavor. And best part of all, because of that, when we get to the next album, which is called Medal, what they do is they take everything they've achieved with Atom Heart Mother, being able to establish their simplified progressive style, their simplicity, ordinary, relatable lyrics, the quirkiness of their sense of humor, the character, all of that stuff, their cohesiveness as a band and all their performances, and they re-inject it with the psychedelia that they are known for, and they are in control of that now. It's no longer Sid Barrett's brand as part of them. They are now able to be the ones that define what makes that flavor interact with progressive rock. And that's when you get this is next album, Metal, is when you get the signature sound that Pink Floyd is known for most famously. And I'm really looking forward to Callum hearing it for the first time because it's a very, very special kind of sound that no other band has ever been able to replicate. I also think that that
Mm.
album cover is very creative as well because it's an ear photographed sideways with a pond with dripping raindrops on it, and it's colored um, blue and red. It's very, very interesting cover design. So yeah, Callum, your anticipation for Metal.
Hmm. I am expecting because of this one, like you said, it was a lot more. Even this one was a lot. This album was a lot more experimentated in terms of after coming from the soundtrack they did. They did a lot of like distinct things with this one. I'm expecting a little bit more classic Pink Floyd, kind of. But yeah, I'm not sure what to expect in terms of what kind of, I guess, what particular way they're going to go next. I'm not sure on that.
One thing
But I'm looking
one
forward to it.
thing I can tell you is that Adam Hart Mother, on the whole, despite it having some very, very strange and experimental sound in it, the overall tone is very, very bright and earthy, as is the cover.
Hmm.
Metal is a much darker album by comparison, for sure.
Right.
It is a much more. I mean, I guess even if you look at the cover, you can imagine it has more, definitely a more ethereal atmosphere. It's certainly more spiritual in that sense. Um, and it's nowhere near as stripped back as Heart Mother. It certainly invokes a sort of a nighttime feel as opposed to Adam Heart Mother, which is more of a daytime feel, is
Mm-hmm.
what I would say. And it kind of hones back to, you remember songs like, I guess, songs like Julia Dream and some of the stuff from a few albums ago, like Cirrus Minor and all that. the more atmospheric, trippier sounding stuff.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely invokes more of that sound to it for some of its songs.
Yeah, whatever it does try to do, hey ho. I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Ben, have you heard any of metal before?
Uh, I don't believe so. No.
Interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. Oh, you've got that to look forward to then. Jeb, would it be fair for me to say that this is one of the ones I've been looking forward to the most? Would you agree with that?
I would, because of, as you mentioned, this is the first taste into what they're most popularly known for. And I think I think we're already fine. I think Callum is a solidified fan, but this is the real, like, if he accepts this, everything else he'll enjoy.
Yeah, because I mean, I think we got a glimpse, like a telescope into the future with A Saucer Full of Secrets. There was definitely things in there. I'm like, oh yeah, that certainly foreshadows certain things, but it's still very reminiscent of Sid Barrett's style in a lot of ways. I think metal is when you're like, this is what Pink Floyd's going to sound like for the rest of their run. Because this is their signature sound that is just so synonymous with them. I don't think it's a spoiler for me to say the next album has my favorite Pink Floyd song on it.
Oh my god.
I think Jeb probably knows the one I'm talking about.
I think I do, yeah.
I mean, there's a few great ones on there that are some of my favorites, but there is one in particular. Oh boy, yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite Pink Floyd song for
I think
many reasons.
we obviously all know mine. Well, I hope we all
Oh
know
yeah.
mine.
Oh, I know your one. I know your one. 100%. I know your one.
I'm hoping Callum and Tin do.
But you go on about it so
Sure.
much.
Yeah, that's why I'm hoping they do.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like my
Yeah.
favourite song of all time.
Mm. Well, my favorite song of all time is on the next album. So yeah, if you don't like it, Callum, I will have to murder you. It is
Oh, that's just that's normal
Same
at this
for
point.
me with mine. I can't fathom why anyone would dislike it.
I'm excited. I can see that there's another 23-minute long song, so fun times. Um, Considering going from this to something that's a bit less stripped down, I think it's gonna be really interesting to see like the differences, especially, but also get back to them being like, now that we proved ourselves, we do whatever the fuck we want, which is kind of the vibe I like for them. So
yeah. Any last thoughts going into next time when we do metal?
It's the
Nothing in
70s.
particular.
Yeah,
It's
I
I'm
mean to be
looking
fair, we
forward
already
to
are in the
it.
70s, Jeb. You dummy.
I mean, we're all into the 70s. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of songs off the next album that are considered defining songs for this band. You know, when you talk about what is the point when you ask the band members like what is the point in time when you think that you found when Pink Floyd really found what it became, and they will point to metal and say it was this song and it was this song. And yeah, by crikey, I'm so looking forward to when we get to it. I'm not exactly an expert with algorithms, but if I were to hazard a guess, this might be the first album that might get some pretty good attention from views because there's some songs off this one that do get a lot of searches online for reactions, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how that goes. Yeah. I love metal, so yeah. Hopefully you do too. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and enjoying Atom Heart Mother. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.